You're listening to The Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everybody, I'm Luke Hector, and this is the Broken Meeple podcast show. Whoop, shuffle my chair there a little bit. Hopefully the audio is good, but thank you for joining me on this interesting episode of the Broken Meeple show, where I'm kind of trying to play catch up with a few things. I've just recently done a massive video where I've recorded multi-part on my camera, exhausted, tired, throat going, all that sort of stuff, to do a Bonanza review video, which is going to be multi-parted to cover a bunch of games that I've got to review that I just need to get reviewed. Now, this isn't going to include big titles, so Endless Winter, Northgard and Bears and Heat and stuff like that. They're going to get their own individual videos as before, but I had a ton that had to get done. World Splitters, World Exchangers, Scout, Vengeance, Roll and Fight, Canopy, and there was a couple of others. Oh, what else was there? A couple of Fantasy Realms Deluxe, Solar Sphere. There was a bunch of these small games that if I did an individual video for each, I would never get them done before Christmas. I doubt I'd get them done before February. So I just had to say, look, you know what? One big video, quick reviews, all of them, good and bad. There's a mixture in there, and I thought we'll go with that. So look out for that when that gets finished, because it's going to have to release in multiple parts in order to make it, viewable for people. But of course, while that's being done, I can get on with the other big videos that I need to do, which have to take a bit more priority. But yeah, somewhat exhausting on that front. But otherwise, things are generally okay. We're getting into December now, so the temperature is more to my liking. There's more Christmas dues on the horizon. I'm expected to be home for a good chunk of Christmas holiday with the family, as much as I would rather be sort of back here for part of it, really, because as much as I enjoy being with the family, there's only so much I can do back in Somerset where they live. Everything's shut, and I can only rinse and repeat the same daily routine of get up, chat, few games, food, the end, or something. I need to get stuff done. I get frustrated if I feel like I'm not being productive, or if I'm not doing anything that I consider to be self-fulfilling in a sense. Like when I do the blog stuff, yes, it can be stressful and it can be a lot of work, but it's good that when I've recorded a bunch of videos or edited a bunch, I'm like, good, I did that. I've produced something today and I've achieved something. Same goes for work. Work is not the most fun thing in the world, but at least when you've completed a few projects at work, it's like, you know what, that was a good day. I felt like I got stuff done. But when I'm at home, I don't get anything done. I'm literally just sitting there like, well, what should we do today then? It's very much Pinky in the brain. It's like, gee, brain, what are we going to do tonight? Same thing we do every day, Pinky. It's the exact same thing when I'm at home. As much as I love my family to bits, there's only so much I can do back in Somerset. But, during the Christmas holidays. Go there when it's nice and hot and everything's open and you can go for walks around the country. Then it's amazing. But yeah. So there's plenty enough in December, which means that I need to get a move on just to get these other big reviews done. But at least with the compilation one, I should be able to get back on track, which is a good thing. It's just the way it is. That's why I had to move my top 100, although we'll get onto that later. But also, I brought the collaborations back. So I did a collaboration recently with All Aboard Gamer, which was a very long 3-hour live stream. But boy, was it fun. We did our top 10 overrated games in our humble, worthless opinions. 6,800 views so far. I know it should be higher than that if I did an individual one that only took 20 minutes, but, that's just the way it is. But 188 comments, and surprisingly, still over 90% likes. Normally, overrated games lists are the hardest one to get likes versus dislike ratios up, and certainly 90 is much lower than every other video I do, but still, the fact that it's in the 90s is pretty impressive. So, by all means, if you can, check out that video, listen to it in the car, listen to it as a podcast or something. You don't have to watch it, all the way through 3 hours or whatever. Just do it in piecemeal. That would make me feel happy and certainly engage with us. We enjoyed it. We're definitely going to do more stuff together. It was great fun. But also, I'd like you to check out a couple of recent reviews, particularly Banner Festival and Precognition. These are two games that I have talked quite highly about, and yet because they are less well-known games and not like the new hotness, then they're not going to get a lot of views. I mean, Banner Festival has been out for, since it's been out for a week. It's not even hit 1,000 views. And, Precognition, I just did the other day, first day, it's not even anywhere near 1,000 views yet. And yet these other games, which I've said, these have got issues or they're not perfect and stuff like that, or even ranted about, have got way more. I mean, I've got 5,000 views for the Wingspan nesting box. Granted, I'm glad I did the video and I'm glad you love it, but 5,000 reviews for a box, and yet this quality game, Precognition and Banner Festival, which I think are good games, aren't getting anywhere near as much love. Which feels a bit of a shame. I mean, Precognition especially, I think that's a pretty solid game. And yet, no one's going to talk about it, no one's really going to see it, and it's just going to fall under the radar, and it really shouldn't. I need more views on those videos, please. Get them shared out. By all means, check out the Wingspan nesting box review, but maybe it's just because it's Wingspan, maybe it's because people knew I was going to rant on it, or maybe people just didn't have any other reviews for the game and wanted to actually check it out. I don't know, but suffice to say, I'd love to see those two videos get a little bit more love. But, as I say, not a big deal. Plenty of content has come out, and, there's plenty more to come. It's going to be interesting when I can finally get back to doing some individual top 10s. However, collaboration top 10s, as I said, they have started, and I have a new one next Saturday, 3 o'clock GMT, okay? That is going to be the next collaboration top 10. Chairman of the board returns. Yes, chairman of the board teamed up with me a while ago. How long ago was that? Was that this year or last year? I get the feeling it was the previous year. Let's have a look. One Pit Wonder was all the way back then. Ryan and Bethany. No, it must have been more recent than that, surely. Where is it? Top worst things in our favourite games. Nope, that was Hexy Beast. That was Ninja Geek Games. That was solo playthroughs. When did I do chairman with the board? I know I did. Ah, there it is. Here we go. Top 10 games that aged well with chairman of the board. There he is, a local UK creator. Support small creators, hashtag. But that was a good little list. I mean, 6,000 views. It's actually one of our more popular live stream ones, in fact. But the main thing is that not only was the topic interesting, but we have very different tastes in games. It's like a lot of different tastes in games. He is very much the beige Euro, the Stefan Feld lover. Dan. Sorry, I mind blanked there for a second. I've had a long day, but he's into those sort of Euros that I don't tend to like at all. So we have two very different lists. And this is his idea. I did suggest some that my Patreons have suggested. And don't worry, they haven't gone forgotten. They will get done, Patreons. But he suggested the idea of top 10 games we dislike but respect. I was very interested about that one because that sounded like a good topic. And instantly I thought of 4 or 5 games that would instantly make that list. And then I thought, okay, can I think of another few? And then jotted down some brainstorming ideas. I need to give it a bit more thought and go through, my ratings on Board Game Geek and that. And it's like, okay, could be cool. Because if it's a game I think is bad or hate, I'm not going to give it respect. I'm sorry, the game just doesn't get the respect from me. But there's a bunch of games where I'm like, yeah, it's meh, or it's average, or doesn't sit well with me, but I can see why it's good. Or if it wasn't for this little bit of it, I would actually like it and really like it. So there's a few of them that would be good to talk about. So it's a good mix of negative and positive. So I thought this would be quite a good one. And obviously the two of us are going to have very, very different lists, I suspect. So look out for next, not Saturday, Sunday. Sunday, 3 p.m. GMT. Sunday it's Friday the 2nd. So Sunday would be, let's have a look. Sunday is the 4th of December. 4th of December, 3 p.m. GMT. Dan and I will join forces together for another top 10 live stream. So I hope you can make that. Alright, let's move on, because basically the rest of this episode is going to be a game I played recently that most people have never heard of, and then we're going to go into my top 100 in more detail. So, the game I've played, I literally played this on Friday with some friends of mine. It is called DEI, Divide a Impera, which I think means divide and conquer. The cover does not give me the same impression as I was getting from that title. I mean, Divide a Impera sounds more like an ancient history, like Romans versus Persians or whatever. Some kind of ancient history dudes on the map game. Well, there certainly is dudes on the map, but then you get this cover which is a post-apocalyptic winter that looks a bit like Frostpunk mixed with Scythe, because you got this mech thing in the background, guys trying to like salvage stuff and climb up wolves and things, a frozen dude here with a mech, and it's like, wow, this kind of gives me a bit of a Scythe feel, just with a winter feel. Okay, cool. But, alright, my mate wanted to play this. He just got on Kickstarter, lots of boxes, a few too many boxes, I think, but, did his very best and taught us the game, and we played a 4-player game of this. So essentially it is a dudes on the map tile game. You are buying cards which allow you to do these actions of collect or move or fight, that kind of thing. Collect, move, recruit, that kind of thing. And basically you have this massive board, and I mean massive. I mean, these photos will not do it justice, because this map can be like 4x4 with these giant tiles, and they're multi-level in some respects because they represent like the different buildings and such. I wonder if I can get a picture that's a full-blown... Yeah, here we go. That's a full-blown setup of the game. It's a table hog, to say the least. But essentially, you put your dudes on the map and you go around, collect the various 2 types of resources, and you use these in order to buy the cards that improve your deck. So it's semi-deck building, but you don't add cards, you replace starter cards. So you always have the same number of cards. And even then, it's not really a deck, it's more your hand. You have access to these cards all the time, it's just they're in your hand. You play the cards in 3 separate stages per round, you play 2 at a time, and then you resolve the actions, and you might put one face down to say, right, I'm going to buy a card with this action. So you're giving up an action to buy a card, but at least it will be a really good card. And you just go around, you occasionally use these drones, which are communal drones. So if you've got the card, you play it, you pilot it, and it does some cool thing like gather more stuff, teleport your units, shoot down other people's, that kind of thing. It's pretty mean. I mean, you're vying for area control over these green, red, and blue outposts and grabbing stuff, and there's a majority rule, which means that if you don't have more units than someone else does, you can't even physically move into the area. You can get blocked off pretty well. It's kind of mean and vicious at times, and that is a little negative for mine. I'm not a massive fan of these mean and vicious ones, but I knew it going in, so it's not like it was a big surprise. But I thought this was, pretty well produced. I mean, he's got the full-on deluxe version, so not only has he got these, pretty cool miniatures, but he's got, the drone minis, he's got these really cool sort of plastic pieces for the resources. The artwork's pretty good. I mean, it's got a kind of almost like a propaganda mixed with Fallout type look to it. And it was an interesting game. I enjoyed it overall. But we played the basic version. Basic version only has, 4 very, very similar factions. Nothing much that interesting drone-wise. I mean, the drones are cool, but like their basic abilities. And we didn't draft the feats. You can get like these special abilities that you can unlock during a game. We didn't draft those. We randomized them, and yeah, that really needed to be drafted, I think, in order to get some synergies. But the game overall was decent. The scores were even quite fairly tight at the end between me and our mate who wins every game we ever play with him. But it's getting to that point. But yeah, it was an interesting game. I need to play it with the extra stuff in though, because there's like another 5 factions he mentioned with much more interesting sounding asymmetrical styles of play. It's just we played the basic ones. So I don't think I ever want to play the basic ones again. I want to play these new ones, like, a guy who has dogs and a bear, and, these psionic faction, and another faction who, is irradiated, so their guys keep dying every round, but they keep, like, killing off everybody else. It's like, I want to try these factions. These sound amazing. And these other drones that you can have, which are a bit more interesting than some of these starter ones. It's like, I want to try them. But the feats as well, as much as I would like to draft the feats so that you get a bit more synergy, this kind of leads into a flaw of the game. This is a Ludus Magnus studio. I think they're Italian. It's a relatively small publisher, I think. I don't think they've done a lot. And this game does have the hallmarks of a typical big multi-box Kickstarter. It's got Pegasus Spiel here, but I think it was an indie publisher that did it originally. Whoever this weird lollipop thing is, I forget. But I found that it does have some flaws. The feats are not balanced. Some of those feats are just downright more powerful than others. Some of them are just outright useless. And so I wasn't a fan of that. It's definitely got too many variants in the book. I mean, the book has a variant for every variant. It's ridiculous. It gives you so many different ways that you can play the game. And as soon as a game has a ton of variants, you know it's because the designers could not be bothered to fully playtest their game and tell you how to play it. I hate games when they do that because it's always a hallmark of bad game design. And certainly this game really needed to pick a route and stick with it. Because there were certain variants which are like, okay, cool, I would use those, and some that I would not go near. But again, tell me how to play your game. Don't let me have a smorgasbord of choice. That's not how to design your game. Take a bit of coffee. Right, so, you know, the card system is cool. There's not a huge amount of variety in the abilities, but there's 4 different piles to pick from, and, you know, you've got to control outposts in order to buy them. I love these drones. I think these drones are a cool thing where you get to control them among all the players. I went very drone heavy, so I was controlling them a lot, but at the expense of other things. The choice of which card to get rid of in order to get a better card is a very tense and horrible choice to make, but it's good. And mainly, I just find it a little bit vicious, maybe a little bit too vicious at times, but then some area control games are like that. And I didn't like having a basic randomized setup for these feats, which, you know, are clearly not balanced, and, you know, having the basic factions. But I want to play this again. You know, I don't think it's amazing. I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a 7. I'd say it was good. Good, not great, but I was playing a basic version. It's quite a long game. You know, it certainly did take us a while to finish it, and it's got a lot of rules overhead. You know, and too many boxes. But I want to try this with some expansions. I want to try some of these other these other factions sound really, really cool, and I want to try them. But I want to draft my own feats, so I want to get a better synergy with that. I want to try some of these other drones out. Basically, throw in the additional content to make this just a little bit more varied and maybe just that little bit more like interesting. But I thought it was actually better than I expected it to be. I thought this was going to kind of fall flat on its face, and it actually kept me entertained. You know, I kind of could call it's got that little bit of a runaway leader problem, that if somebody's rich, they're going to get richer, and other players need to reel them in, and that wasn't happening a lot in our game, so that person just runs away with it. But it also got to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to catch him up points-wise, and I could pretty much call the victor at that stage. That's always a bit of a problem, but like I say, the game was good generally. I'd like to try it with some more bits thrown in, and maybe with those asymmetric factions, it, you know, because I didn't feel very different from other players. I mean, we had a leader ability each, and I mean, what, I collect an extra thing with my guy with a spade in his location? There's better stuff to do than that, frankly. I mean, I was controlling the spider bot for ages, this thing on the cover here, and just harvesting resources, so why did I need my leader ability? So they were a bit of a letdown. I want to try the cool leaders, the really funky factions, and see what it's like. But yeah, divide and conquer, or divide a Impera, or whatever you want to call it, or DEI. I mean, it's a bit of a nightmare to search for on Board Game Geek. Ranked in the 4000s, better than I expected it to be. And obviously Pegasus Spiel has had a look at it, but it's clearly had more of a European distribution than a UK one. I'm not aware that this has got any UK retail release at all, other than Kickstarter backers, but I'm not saying it was better than I thought. So, I don't know. And a Ready Steady Play, I know Mike Dennis has done a setup and rules video on this, so it might be worth checking that out if you want to learn the game, but be curious to know what his thoughts are on the game in general, really. I haven't heard him speak of it, but yeah, it was a nice little surprise, and something different. It meant that I didn't have to teach a game for once, which is a nice relief sometimes on a Friday. Alright, I'll take a swig of my drink, because my throat is definitely drying up. But let's get on to the focus of this episode, and hopefully I won't spend 40 minutes on this, but we'll see. So, I did my top 100 back in September, October. It took a while. It took a bit of a while. But I love doing them. They are good fun. They're just a lot of work. Hence, I'm moving them to January now, so that I can do them in, you know, January, February time, when I can do them in the quiet space of the year. So that will help me next time. And by the time 14 months have passed, you're going to see some good fluctuations on that list, I think. Because, I mean, 2 Essens would have passed by then. There's going to be some interesting movements on there. Not to mention, a lot of the games that I've got will have had another 14 months to sit on my shelf and go, are they still as fun as I remember them? Who knows? But yeah, it'll be pretty cool. But I said I was going to do a live stream where I was going to analyze the top 100 in more detail, talk about games that fell off and such, but I just didn't have the time. Too much Essence stuff, hence the compilation video. And I'm like, come on, Luke, you got to get on with it. Get it done. But I couldn't squeeze in another live session. So I figured, why not just borrow a podcast episode? You know, got other topics I'd like to talk about, and Patreons obviously suggest their own ones, but what I'm probably going to do, most of them have suggested questions rather than topics, so I'll probably do a live Q&A at some point to go through those. But yeah, I figured let's just hijack a podcast episode and do this. So I'm basically going to talk a little bit more about the stats for my top 100. Now, not the stats for the current top 100 in terms of the games. I'm more interested in the designers, more interested in the publishers, and what games fell off the list. So I'm going to go into detail in those. So let's bring up my Google Drive here. So Google Drive, this is the spreadsheet that I get. And like I say, if you're listening to this on audio, don't worry, I'm going to talk about these things. But for those of you on video, this is the Google Drive spreadsheet I have for my top 100. And you can see, if you can see the tabs, it goes back quite a few years. This is where I export, this is where I put in all the stuff that comes out of the, what they call it, not the tabletop together tool, it's the, what's the, I've forgotten what the tool is that I use for it. I got to look this up now. I have to look this up. Right, top 10 generator board games. I forget what it's called. Oh, this is so bad. So bad, so bad. Pub Meeple. The Pub Meeple generator. There it is. Yes, the Pub Meeple generator. So I put stuff into that and I do all the comparisons. It spits out about 150, 200 games for me. And I then plug the top 100 into this spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet shows me the top 100 for the current year. I've already copied and pasted the top 100 for the previous year alongside it. And then the designer and publisher is usually done through a, pivot table. But then the last year position is obviously linked to that one. And then, the movement is linked to the ranks between the two. And it basically tells me how many places it's gone up, what last year position was, whether it's gone up or down, and I can clearly see the movement. If it's not applicable and new, I have to manually enter that in to reflect that it's a new game, but then I also highlight the new ones in blue on the left so that I can easily see which ones are new to the list. On the right, though, you may have noticed that some of them are highlighted in yellow. That's the ones that fell off the list from last year. But then as we get to the bottom, I then have a table down here that goes through the entire selection of the current year and counts games by publisher and designer. Now, this is not a fully 100% accurate way of doing this because multiple publishers have done games. So I try my best to find the original publisher. And designers usually have more than one designer on a game. So I have to pick a designer. I can't have all of them. So I try to pick the lead designer where possible. And yep, that can throw the numbers off a little bit, but sometimes it balances. But like I say, it's not an exact science. I don't have the time to go through in meticulous detail. It's more just a passing fancy, this. But let's first talk about my favorite publishers, apparently, according to my list. So I've already noticed that there's Red Raven games and Red Raven is duplicated, so that should be 2. So they should be higher. In fact, like I say, these mistakes happen. In fact, why don't I correct that now? Where does it say Red Raven? Red Raven. Red Raven. Come on. Come on. Actually, no, I'm not going to correct it. That's not fun for the people on audio. So we'll just accept that they've got 2, not 1. But as you can see, there's a lot of individual publishers. Artipier, 1. Blacklist, 1. Delicious Games, 1. Foxtrot, 1. iGames, 1. Colossal Games, 1. Cosmos, 1. A lot of these publishers feature only once on my top 100. That's not to say I don't like these publishers. It's just there's only so many games, and they're the ones that feature on there. But then we get 2s, 3s, and then 4, and then 11. So yeah, 11, 4, and then multiple at 3 is my top publisher list. So you can see I like a wide variety of publishers except for one. Now, granted, this publisher has a bit of an advantage because the third favorite is, well, let's go into the top favorite and go down. So FFG is my number 1 publisher on my list. 11 games. But then they've had a lot of years to produce a lot of games, and to be fair, they have a lot of IPs I enjoy, and they make a lot of games I enjoy. But I mean, Fantasy Flight. So, going down my list here. So what have we got here? We have got Mansions of Madness. We have got, let's see, Mansions of Madness. And to be fair, not a lot of them are in my top 10 or even 20, in fact, but there's just a lot of them on the list. So Mansions of Madness, Citadels, Arkham Horror card game, Lord of the Rings card game, Journeys to Middle-earth, Marvel Champions, I thought that was Fox in the Forest then. No, Star Wars Outer Rim, Cosmic Encounter, Journeys to Middle-earth already mentioned, Mission Red Planet, Star Wars Rebellion. Yeah, you can see that there's quite a lot of games from those IPs that I just like. So naturally, FFG is just kind of impossible to beat, really, frankly. Second place, though, with 4. Just pipping the freeze in the crowd is Libellude. Yeah, Libellude is technically my second favorite publisher because, I mean, this is based on my top 100. I mean, is it objectively my second favorite, my top and second and third favorite publisher? I'm just going by my top 100 here, but Libellude appears 4 times and relatively high up, in fact, in some cases. I mean, what have we got? Libellude. So highest one is Seasons, I believe, and then 2 under that is Mysterium. That was Libellude originally. And then what else is Libellude? Oh, here we go. Obscurio. Really enjoy that one. And Dixit in general. Yeah, 4 of them are on my list. And say, Libellude do a lot of cool games. I mean, they've kind of dominated the whole Dixit card mechanic, hence Mysterio and Obscurio on the list. But then Seasons I still really like. Yeah, Libellude just does some cool games that I really enjoy that have been consistent on my top 100. So I think they've always had 3 or 4 on my list. Maybe Obscurio is the newest one, but yeah, they've always at least had 3 on my list. They're just a consistent publisher, whereas FFG comes and goes, but then they just have a lot of them. And then you get a bunch of these at 3. So what have we got here? Stonemaier, Osprey Games, Mind Clash, Garfield Games, Eagle Griffin, Check Game Editions, and AEG. All of them have 3 games. In fact, actually saying that, was Red Raven? No, Red Raven would have ended up on 2. So yeah, as much as I give, crap on Stonemaier a bit lately with things like the Wingspan Nesting Box and the Asia expansion and some of their other games like Tapestry and Pendulum. And like I say, there's a lot to hate on some of the Stonemaier games. They still make Scythe, Viticulture, and Wingspan. 3 of my favourite games of all time. So, they're just consistently on this list at 3 because those 3 games are just like their powerhouses. Granted, the rest of their stuff is not, but that's why they're in there in the 3rd tied place. Osprey Games is kind of a surprise, really, a local publisher, but then I've got to give props. Brian Boro, I was surprised by that one. Imperium, really enjoy that one. And Cryptid. They're all Osprey Games. They're all really good. Garfield Games, I think, though, is going to get higher soon because Garfield Games only has 3 at the moment. Architects, Viscounts, and Raiders. Okay? But I've recently just bought Explorers of the North Sea. It was low in stock, it was on Kiender, and I had some vouchers, and I thought, you know what? It's about time I tried this game, because I've been saying for ages that I want to try Explorers of the North Sea, because a lot of people are telling me it's good, even though it gets no buzz compared to the rest, and it's like, fine, I'll try it. So I've bought it, I'll give you my views on that in the long run. But I also have Wayfarers of the South Tigris arriving at the end of next week, and I already know that's a pretty solid game, but I need to play it more to see where it will feature if on the top 100. I'd be surprised if it didn't, but still. But there's a chance that Garfield Games is going to have 4, maybe even 5 games on my top 100. So they could bolster up to 2nd place if they carry on at the rate they're going. And by the time we do the next top 100, maybe I'll even have Scholars of the South Tigris or whatever it's called next time. And maybe that will be another game. They could even have 6 on my top 100 if they carry on being as solid as they are. So expect them to rise. Eagle Griffin, that's basically the Serta games. Check Game Editions. What's Check Game Editions? That's Pulsar 2849. It's also Lost Ruins of Arnak. That's my favourite of theirs. So Lost Ruins of Arnak. And the other one I mentioned. What's the other one? Under Falling Skies. I think that's probably going to fall off the list as time goes on. And AEG. Yeah, I'm surprised AEG doesn't have more games on there, but AEG just has a lot of games that I go good, great, but not necessarily top 100 worthy. That's why there's only 3 of them, but they are generally a consistent good publisher. But AEG, what's that? Mystic Vale, Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Kings, and Edge of Darkness. Now, technically Cascadia is Flat Out Games. Yes, Alderac also published it, but it's technically Flat Out Games, so AEG doesn't get that one on my list. Like I say, not an exact science, but it's just the way it is. But AEG is high up. I mean, Edge of Darkness, and Valley of the Kings. They're in my top 30. So they're consistently high up. But then Garfield Games, I have 2 games in my top 20. And then where's their other one? Where's Raiders? If that's where those 2 are, where's Raiders? Oh, in my top 30. So yeah, their 3 games are in my top 30. So they would be technically better. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there for these publishers. All right, let's swig a coffee. Moisten the throat. Wonder if I'm going to lose my voice by the end of this. And move on to designers. So this is definitely not an exact science. Because bearing in mind, I literally cannot... who was it? I cannot be exact when there's multiple designers, particularly in certain cases. But going by my list through designers, technically my favorite designer is a tie between Bruno Cathala and Antoine Bauza. Now, one of these could actually be slightly higher than the other. Bearing in mind, Seven Wonders Duel is listed down as Bruno Cathala. It was also co-designed by Antoine Bauza. So, you know, technically Antoine Bauza maybe should have 5, but then I'm pretty certain there's games where Cathala's worked on it and I've given the credit to someone else. Like I said, not exact science, but basically we are saying that my favorite designers are Cathala and Bauza. Are they both French? I'm not totally sure. I'm pretty sure Bruno Cathala is. I'm not sure about Antoine Bauza, but, you know, yeah, European designers, what can I say? You make some of my favorite games. And, I mean, where does Bruno Cathala feature in my list? Well, as I mentioned, Abyss. Yeah, Abyss is up there. Seven Wonders... Oh, no, Seven Wonders Duel is down as Antoine Bauza, not Bruno Cathala. So, I mean, technically Bruno Cathala would have 5 instead of 4. So, no exact science, as I keep saying. But yeah, so he's technically Seven Wonders Duel, but he was mainly on there for Abyss. Where else does Bruno Cathala feature? I mentioned Miniature Red Planet. He's definitely up there for them. I'm having to go down a bit. So he's definitely one of my favorite designers in terms of consistency, but he's not necessarily all in my top 50. But then as we get down, I've got Conspiracy Abyss Universe. I've got 5 Tribes. And he's done a lot of other stuff. I mean, I mentioned the 2-player games lately. I took Sobek for a review, and Sobek's really good. Yeah, he's very consistent. I really like his stuff, typically. Antoine Bauza, though, I mean, can't forget him. Seven Wonders Architects, Seven Wonders Duel. Okay, so maybe he's a bit of a one-trick pony with me, but hey, he's got a system and it works. But there must be something else that Antoine Bauza did that isn't Seven Wonders related. What would that be? Let's have a look. Scrolling down, that's Al-Anon Moon. That's not it. That's a Bruno Cathala. Where else does Antoine Bauza feature on my list? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, Takinoko. I was going to say, I knew there had to be something else that he... I'm pretty sure it's... I can't remember if it's Bauza or Bauza, but anyway. But yeah, so those 2 are essentially tied for my favourite designers. Then we have, strangely enough, Uwe Rosenberg, Nate French, and Shem Phillips and Vital Lacerda tied at 3. So Shem Phillips, well, you know what they are. They're the Garfield games. Nate French, LCGs. LCG slash, you know, Journeys to Middle-earth, Mansions of Madness, you know, so yeah, basically FFG. Vital Lacerda, as I mentioned, the 3 Eagle Griffin games I've got are all designed by Vital Lacerda, so it's 3 games that are on my top 100. And Uwe Rosenberg, Fields of All, Caverna. What's the other one? What's the other one? Why else are you on here? Oh, Feast for Odin, although that's at 94. Feast for Odin might not be on my top 100 next time, so, you know, you might see Uwe Rosenberg take a drop if he doesn't design something else that I go, well, Ottawa. Ottawa's on my shelf still. That was pretty solid, so Ottawa could be the replacement for Feast of Odin on my top 100. We shall see, but it's a long time to wait for them. And then second place, we're sort of tied, but, well, like I say, joint third, effectively. We're looking at quite a bunch of designers here. I mean, all of these have got 2 games. Vladimir Succi, S. Halaban, I forget who that is, Scott Caputo, Ryan Lockett, R. Aman, I forget what he does, Alexander Nevsky, Jamie Stonemeyer, because technically he didn't do Wingspan, John DeClaire, Edge of Darkness and Mystic Veil, Corey Gnezga, so we're talking like Star Wars Outer Rim and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a bunch of these designers that featured twice, and honestly, my palette when it comes to publishers and designers is pretty varied. I mean, you can see that there's a lot of tied positions. There's no designer that, you know, I love all their games. There's no publisher that I love all their games either. It's just some are more consistent than others, and FFG is just kind of an outside, you know, an outside skewed system because of how many games they've made, particularly in like since the year 2000. So yeah, there's quite a bit of a breadth there. There's, as much as these designers are technically my favorites, it's not like these other ones, that feature on my top 100 are bad. They just only have one on my top 100, but there's loads of designers here. There's a ton of them to make up that extra, batch up to 100. It's just like, Alan R. Moon. The only one of his games on my top 100 is Ticket to Ride. Well, I love Ticket to Ride. What can I say? So it's not like just having that one game is a bad thing. It's just how they feature. Right, so let's see about games. Now, they've fallen off the list. How long are we into this? About 38 minutes, 35. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail over all of these, but I need to get the Board Game Geek website back. I then need to get my list. So where are we? Oh, nope. Let's go back to there. So we need to go into these. So you've probably already seen them as spoilers. All right, you're going to see them as spoilers anyway, but for those of you on audio, you're going to get more of a spoiler-free section here. But as you can see, 18 games fell off the list, so I always do a subtotal. 14 games appeared on the list, 4 returned to the list, and 18 fell off. And I have to use that as a math check, because naturally it nets off to 0. So, math, get it? But, there's a bunch of these, and there are some high up, but most of them tend to be in my 90s and 80s, because naturally they're the ones that are more likely to fall off. But there are reasons why ones higher up could fall off. A game replaces it. Or maybe the kinks in the armor have been done. Or maybe I've played it to death and there's nothing new to play. There's various reasons. But we're going to go through the list. So, Dwellings of Eldervale. Yeah, I had this game and I did enjoy it at first, but it cost a pretty penny. It cost a lot. And it was a big box. And the more I played it, the more, as much as I like the design of the game, this almost could be a contender for the... Well, no, I don't dislike the games. I don't know if I could say it would appear on next week's collaboration list, because I do like the game, but it's too mechanical rather than thematic. I wanted a thematic, magic-themed game, like, oh yeah, look at all these cool spells, and I'm playing the Forest Wizard. I am so different to if I'm playing the Fire Wizard. It's not. Dwellings of Eldervale is a very mechanical game. The whole fact that you've got these different tracks and that really means nothing. Seriously, do they not put any pictures on this website other than just people's faces? I want to get pictures of the game, not some random people. But, you play this and it's mostly just area control on the map and building little houses. And once I played it a bunch, it's like, yeah, that's really all this is. And it's got a well-designed solo mode and it is well-produced and colourful. I like the box and everything, but eventually I just got a bit sick, and I like the variety of all the factions, but I just got a little bit sick and tired of the fact that it was mainly just an area control game with, a smidgen of theme thrown in, and I kind of wanted more theme. So this one's just gone down a bit for me. I've sold it since. I no longer own this game. I would play it if someone put it in front of me, but it's not the first one I gun to, and certainly I don't think it's the 177th best game ever. I think that's maybe overselling it a bit, but I don't know, 7? I think 7's still fine. I still think it's good. I originally rated it an 8, I think, when I had it, and then it's like, yeah, hang on, I don't need to keep this. Alright, what was the next one? Next one was First Martians. I'm like one of the only people who champions this game. And yeah, I still enjoy this game, but it's not quite top 100 worthy anymore. So, First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet is the pseudo-sequel to Robinson Crusoe. It's basically Mars. So if you wanted to play, The Martian as the board game, you play First Martians. It's a pseudo-realistic sort of take on living on Mars, where everything's going to pot. You're running out of oxygen, or things are breaking down and such. You've got to take your little rover out on a little mini-map. You've got to keep everything in check. But it's done with an app. It's app-assisted. So the app throws in, different events, different, scenarios for you to go up against. And it's got a little bit of a soundtrack, it's got a story in the legacy mode, and you've got different scenarios. I really like this game. I think it's a good, fun game, but it was marred by the fact that the rulebook was atrocious. I've since printed off a revised rulebook that was done a lot better, but still, there's quite a lot of overhead for this game. There's a lot going on. It's hard for me to get this back to the table because I have to relearn it all over again, and that is a bit of a put off. And so I still own it, but I am in that position where I'm in an R-ing between keeping it and selling it, because it is just very tricky to get back to the table. But I do not regret my time with it. I've had some good plays of it. I've enjoyed it. And I still think it's a solid game with a nice narrative to it. But yeah, it just really wasn't helped by some iffiness with the app at first. And certainly get somebody to proofread and edit your rulebook. Seriously, spend some money on those rulebooks, because you really can tank your own game without a decent rulebook. All right, next one, Pioneer Days. Now, Pioneer Days is still probably high up in my hundreds. It's just not high enough to be in my top 100. But Pioneer Days is an overlooked game. Matthew Dunstan and TMG, sadly not around anymore, but if you can get a copy of this anywhere, I do highly recommend it. It's a dice drafting game where you roll the dice, you draft them, and you put them on these various actions here, 1 to 6. But you either take money, or you do the action of the die, or you take a character that you can, hire a character that goes into your caravan, effectively. But the die that doesn't get taken levels up these disaster tracks, and these disasters happen and hurt everybody around the table. It's just a case of, are you prepared for that? And so it's just a neat little system. It goes on a bit long. That is a flaw of the game, and probably why it has dropped a little bit. 4 players, this game does drag out a bit, but 2 or 3 players, I find this to be good fun. I think it's well produced. It's a neat little system. It just, as I say, overstays its welcome a bit, which is why it's kind of dropped. But I do like the variety with the characters. I do like the puzzle with the dice. It's a solid little game and generally overlooked by a lot of people. But honestly, give this one a check if you've not seen it before. I think you'll quite like it, especially if you like Dunstan's designs. Alright, next up we have the Court of Miracles. I've recently just sold this out of the collection. I gave it pretty high review when I played it, like a 9 I think. And I still think it's good. I still think it's probably about 7 or 8 now. It's an 8, yeah, so it's dropped a little bit. But the Court of Miracles is, and like I say, do not pay attention to my logged plays. I don't record every single game I play. It's just it's more just try to keep rough track. But most of the time I forget to log my plays anyway, because I'm too busy socializing. And I forget to do it after the fact. I know I've played this more than 6 times. I'm sure I've played it way more than that. But Court of Miracles is a Lucky Duck game. Straight up area control, pretty vicious. You're essentially putting these tokens face down on the board, and you're waiting for the spaces to fill up. When they do, you check who's got the majority based on the value of the token. You get a bonus, and you're just basically trying to put these various tokens off your board out. It's as mechanical as all get out, but it's nice, simple, does 5 players really easily, and you can customize which tokens you have. Well produced, even though the box is probably a bit oversized for what it is. It was a decent game, but it just stopped sort of hitting the table much in favour of other 5-player games. And I thought, yeah, you know what, maybe this isn't one that's going to stay in the collection. But yeah, if somebody wants to play it, I will gladly jump into this. I still think it was pretty solid. All right. Vinyos. Yes, I said that some games were in my collection from Vital Lacerda. Not all of them, and I must admit, this one probably needs to drop down a mark. So it is currently a 9. I think we're going to drop it down to an 8 to be more accurate. This is probably my 4th favourite of the Lacerda games at the moment. And it's good. I mean, it's great. I really like this game. It's just not top. Like I say, it's falling out of my top 100. It doesn't mean I hate the game, all right? But, this is a heavy winemaking game. I like this theme. I prefer viticulture because you're actually more making the actual wine, whereas this is more about running the business of making wine. So it's more of an economic thing. But I like the fact that you've got the vineyards you can build up, the various developers and that. The action track where you've got these meeples going around is quite a cool little puzzle. And I like how you have the fair where you can submit a wine and then try and compete with everybody else based on taste and aroma and stuff. So it's thematic and it's well produced and looks gorgeous. But it's just slightly fallen a bit on the wayside. The rule set is a little bit hard to remember when you get back into it. Some of those vineyards that you can put your markers on feel a bit too powerful compared to others. I don't like the 2010 version, which is like all about bank loans and stuff like that. And it's like, no, this is too complicated. I much prefer the 2016 upgraded version. And Like I say, I still really enjoy it. It's probably below 110, honestly. You know, it's still high, just not top 100 worthy. I think Lisboa slightly overtook this one, because Lisboa, I think, was in my 90s or so. Actually, was Lisboa my 100? Yeah, Lisboa was my 100. Okay, Vinyos is probably a few spaces below it. It's just slightly pipped to the mark. Alright, Arkham Horror, the 3rd edition. It just doesn't hit the table enough anymore. I mean, I do like it. It's still on my shelf, and I would gladly bring it out if I could, but man, this one is just hard to get to the table. Much like a lot of the Arkham Horror stuff, frankly, and that is its biggest issue. But it's a more streamlined version of Arkham Horror. I loved the 2nd edition when I played it, but it's too much, too many rules, too fraught with stuff. 3rd edition is just a lot easier to bring out and get played while still retaining that cool Arkham Horror theme. I enjoy it. It just takes a long time to play. Like, I'm only going to play this solo, frankly. I'm not playing this with 3 or 4 players because it will take to the end of time. I'd rather play the LCG with multiple players or just play Mansions of Madness with more players. But yeah, it's still a fun game. Just, I can't call this top 100 anymore. And I don't think it will ever resurface back in. Alright. Hostage Negotiator. Hostage Negotiator was the next one to fall off. And bear in mind, I'm going from the bottom upwards, okay? Hostage Negotiator. Again, I don't find myself playing this one as much. And yet I've got all the expansions to it. And they certainly add a lot of variety. And that's all well and good. But I just don't find myself playing this one much. The fact that it is mainly dice rolling does grate a little bit after a while. There's only so much you can do tactics-wise, but I do like the variety in the enemies you can face and the different investigators you can have and, you know, these different scenarios. Now, I think the variety is good, and I think it's still a cool game. I've not played Final Girl, which is the one that a lot of people talk about now. I was not going to spend that much on it when it was basically just an upgrade to this, frankly. I don't feel you need to own both. But this is one I pull out every now and again. I mean, I've got the career expansion. I haven't even tried it yet. So, you know, I would like to try the career one and see if it functions any better. But yeah, it's a good, fun dice game. It's just a case of haven't really had the time to play it. So it's just kind of fallen by the wayside a bit. All right, keep my throat in check. I'm really struggling. Come on, keep it up. Just a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer. How many games have I got? Oh, God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Oh, God, a lot of games. All right, we're going to have to zip through these a bit. Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition. Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition. Well, yeah, I like it. It's fine, but I feel that there's better co-ops out there. It does look gorgeous, I got to admit. It's a gorgeous looking game, but I don't know, I just feel like playing other co-ops, frankly. It's very luck driven. You know, a lot of stuff is based on the events and what dice you roll, and that can feel a bit punishing. Like, sometimes you win the game and you don't really know if you won it by skill or just by dumb luck. But it looks gorgeous. Simple rule set. I actually might have sold this in advance of getting the Kickstarter expansion and forgotten I actually backed it, so that might be a problem. I might have to sell the expansion on its own, but yeah, it's a good game and I do like it, and I think this one deserves some credit, but it's just not one that I played as much, and it eventually got sold out of the collection. So this would be in my top 200 games, just not quite top 100. Alright, Imperial Settlers. This one I still think is a really great game, although it is bloated as all get out and I don't want a deck build. But the simple fact is, there's Empires of the North. Empires of the North is on the shelf there, and it's replaced Imperial Settlers. And it took me a while before I sold this one, because people didn't want to buy it, but because Empires of the North, you know. But eventually someone has bought my whole collection of it, and, you know, I would still play this if someone offered it, but Empires of the North, it came out, it replaced it. The two games are both great, but this is an 8 out of 10 for me. Empires of the North is a 10. You know, one game just clearly surpassed the other. Right, okay, what next? Legendary Encounters. Right, so we're getting into the higher ones. 83, now dropped out. Legendary Encounters, an alien deck building game. I still really like the alien one of this. It's in a box up there, but I don't have the capability to get it out because it's in one of those bloated boxes that I really wish I didn't buy in the first place. 9 out of 10. I'm going to need to drop that down to an 8. Yep, let's adjust my rating there. So, mainly this one's just a setup ball ache. I mean, it's such a setup problem. You know, I like the alien theme with this, and I think this is easily the best of the Legendary series. I mean, I have really toned out now on the Marvel one. I think the Marvel one's just too much, just too much setup and too much, like, the theme's not well represented in it. But I think as much as the artwork is questionable in this, it's just a really cool, game where you're playing for the movies. You've got all the iconic characters. You've got the face hugger rule, which is still one of the most scariest things I've seen on TV. I hate face huggers. They freak me out like crazy. But hey, it's called Alien. It's meant to be gross and really upsetting and really uncomfortable. So it does a good job. But yeah, I love Alien. I love the Aliens. The first two Alien movies. Aliens is one of my favorite action movies, and Alien is the best horror movie I've ever seen. I think Alien just did it perfect. It did the perfect atmospheric horror without going too gross and without being too weird like modern day horror ones are. But yeah, pretty solid all around. But the problem is, it's a pain to set up. You've got to tailor a bunch of these decks, and I've got to get it out of this big box up there, and I just haven't had the desire to go through that palaver again. So that's why it's fallen off a bit, and I don't know when I'll get it played, but I do think it's a really good game. It's just, yeah, these things happen. Rising Sun. Yeah, Rising Sun. Originally really, really liked this game, and now it is starting to drop. I just haven't had a desire to bring it out. In fact, that is so getting dropped to an 8. Yep, need to update that. But Rising Sun is a lot of setup. There's a lot of rules to teach. It's big, it's multiple boxes, and it's basically a dudes on the map game. And the more Cool Mini or Not are just releasing the same thing over and over again, the more I'm like, And the problem with this is that I want to play this with 3 players. 4 players is fine, but I find that 3 players works really well with this. Because 4 players, you just end up with, well, I don't know, it's hard to say. 3 players, it can work with the diplomacy thing. 2 players could team up, 1 person on their own, but then that 1 person has the traitor tile, and they can really do some good stuff. 5 players, game is too long, goes on too long, and if you're the 1 person outside of 2 whole alliances, you're going to get screwed. You're going to get screwed. 4 player works quite well, though, because you might have 2 alliances go on at the same time, but then you might have 1 alliance and 2 separate. That can be quite interesting. But yeah, this one's just a bit of a pain to get out and set up. And I think a lot of this is the problem. The more that they are a pain to get out and set up, the less my desire to play them is. Some of these cards are just a bit broken, I think. There are some strategies in this game that I just think outrank a lot of others really easily, and they don't feel like strategies. They just feel like a mechanical boost. But, still looks gorgeous. Still really think it was a great production, but I spent way too much money on this. This was the catalyst. This was the last game that I decided I was going to spend like 200 to 300 bucks on a Kickstarter for, because I went all in on this, and I really regretted it. I would have been just as happy with a deluxe version of the base game alone. I didn't need Dynasty Invasion and all that on top. I spent too much on this, and I regret that. And I think this was the last time I ever fell for that again. So yeah, Rising Sun is still in my top 200 games, but yeah, it's just not getting played. But I don't want to sell it just yet. Eldritch Horror 77, that's gone down a lot. Again, just, as I say, bloat, setup, how often does it get played? My situation just doesn't allow for these games to get played a lot, and therefore they do drop a bit. But it's also the desire to get it played. Like Edge of Darkness. I don't get Edge of Darkness played very often. It's a big, massive niche game. But man, do I want to play it. And I can play it solo in not too long a time. But yeah, I want to play it. I want to get it out right now if I had the time. I have a desire to do so. But then I don't have the desire right now to get Eldritch Horror and a few... Eldritch Horror? Eldritch Horror and a few others out, I mean, this is a massive game. It's long. It's got cards that reset the game, which is straight up garbage. It's just got too much bloat. And I think that's the thing. I sometimes get a bit too hard up in like, oh, I gotta buy this new content. But yeah, Luke, how often do you play this game? Do you really need the new content? And now I'm a lot more picky about that sort of thing, with the exception of LCGs. But yeah, for the most part, I'm like, yeah, maybe I don't need everything for this game. And certainly this is one that I think just got too bloated. But still really enjoyed the game. Maximum 3 players. If it's at a convention and people want to play a 3-player game of it, I would totally chime in. But yeah, not top 100 in material with the way it's not getting played. Ghost Stories. Ah, yeah, Ghost Stories. I do like Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is fun. It just has not been played in a long time. It's hard to remember all the rules to it. In fact, I probably need to drop... I think I need to drop both of these, actually. I think 9 for both is a bit much. So we're going to drop that to an 8. We're going to drop the expansion to an 8 as well. I don't have Black Secret, but Ghost Stories is still a good, really fun game. Co-op. Tower defense, great theme, great artwork. I love this Piero artwork with the ghosts and everything. You know, I think it's a really cool, tough tower defense game. Not interested in Last Bastion. I don't care about generic fantasy. I want these cool ghosts and that. It's just got a bit of a weird rule book. It's just not hit the table that much. I mean, I have desire to bring it out, but not crazy desire. So that's why it's kind of fallen off the top 100. It's why it's probably an 8 rather than a 9. But I still give this one props. This is one that I think is quite high up in my top 200 in a sense. Like it's probably in the 100, 110s, 120s. But yeah, it's still a game I really enjoy. But yeah, top 100 doesn't quite deserve to be up there at this point. Alright, a few more. Teotihuacan, City of Gods was 68. Now is off my top 100. Yeah, I'm really faltering on this. In fact, I'm faltering on a lot of Board and Dice's stuff at the moment. Nothing against Board and Dice, it's just their games are just feeling very samey. Like a game comes out and I just think, oh look, another one of these. It's just, it seems like it's the same thing. And this one, again, I like the game, but I've bloated it with expansions and I don't want to play all that expansion content. I mean, I think the latest expansion I haven't even touched. You know, the Orange Pyramid, I don't find myself using that much. I just want the new setup tiles and the new technologies. That's all I want. More of the good stuff. Don't give me more mechanics for a game that's already got too many mechanics. That's the bad way to do expansions. But nope, this one wanted to throw in everything in the kitchen sink and then throw in another kitchen sink. It's just not needed. It's a lot of rules to remember. It's quite a tight game. It's a good, fun Euro. I mean, I like it. It's probably my favourite game that Board and Dice have produced. But yeah, it's just a lot of rules overhead. I'd have to relearn this all over again. It's bloated. I'd have to sort out the expansions. And I'm kind of done with a lot of these dice manipulation puzzle games that don't have any theme behind them. The less thematic a game is, the more it's got to work to be on my list. And something like Pulsar 2849 is a simple mid-weight point salad. This is a heavy Euro, tight, lots of rules, lots of overhead. Particularly if you do the solo mode, it's just a bit much. Oh, blimey, we're getting on time. Right, let's... what have we got? 4 more. All right, 4 more, and then we'll wrap up. So, from 59, Barren Park. Barren Park is no longer on my top 100, and I was singing the praises of this game for ages. Like, why is this not on my top 100? I mean, I still give it a 9. I still think I'll... do I want to keep a 9, though? Yeah, you know what? I still want to keep it a 9, because it's not that... The top 100 is not just simply, oh, my 10s and then my 9s and then my 8s all the time. There are exceptions. I do think Barren Park as a game is a great, simple design tile laying game. The problem is Alice's Garden. Yes, Alice's Garden has kicked this one off my list. In fact, I've sold it since. I no longer own Barren Park. Yeah, I got rid of Barren Park. I will gladly recommend this to loads of people. My parents still have this at home. I will gladly play Barren Park. Really enjoy it. Alice's Garden is cheaper, smaller, quicker, does the same thing. Why do I need Barren Park? It just straight up replaced it. Alright, check out my review if you don't know what Alice's Garden is. Predaporter was 56 and is now off my top 100. Yeah, it's just not getting a lot of plays lately. It's a big 3-hour epic Euro. It's long, it's quite involved, a bit of rules. Mainly the balance issues I'm starting to notice a bit more with plays. I mean, as much as... I mean, this is the old version of the game, and... Oh, no, there's a bit of the new one, but... Yeah, there's not much... Come on, show me some of the new game. Ah, there we go. This will do. So, it looks gorgeous, and I think it's a really good thematic and economic Euro. The balance is a bit off, though. Some of the characters that you can get, some of the contracts, some of the things you do in the show... There are some that are clearly better than others, and they get taken way before anything else does. And as much as you can get, victory points in the show, if you can get a lot of cash, you can kind of eclipse what you do in the show a bit. And so I mean, yeah, you are technically meant to make a business, not just a good bit of fashion, but yeah, there are some balance issues I have noticed in this game, which is why it's faltered, but still on my shelf, still down there, and I would play this, but whoever put 90 to 120 minutes on this box is lying out of their back teeth. This is a 3-hour game through and through, and it's another thing that hurts it. 3 hours, rather pull out Ark Nova. Right, Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island was 50. Now off my top 100. Just doesn't get played. I mean, I have backed the new version, and I'm hoping that that might make the game see a bit of a resurgence, at least into the top 100, or, you know, not this high again, but maybe a bit higher. But we're definitely going to drop that down to an 8. Robinson Crusoe's just got the problem of being very hard to relearn. As soon as I forget the rules, I've got an uphill struggle to relearn it again. There's a lot going on, and the rulebook was not great. Even the new version could only do so much. But I do enjoy this one, mainly from a solo perspective. It is good fun, but I'm kind of paused this one because I think the expansions did this more harm than good. I wasn't a massive fan of the what was it called? The Darwin's one or something like that. That side one. And the horror one, the Eldritchy horror one, was okay, but it added complications. It was a bit broken in some areas, and it's like, yeah, not as great either. So I would just stick with the base game. But the thing is, I kind of need a better way to teach this to other people, because it is fun multiplayer as well. So I basically just need to wait for the new version to come out to look better, have those miniatures, have like a bit more thing, but mainly to have the tutorial campaign or the tutorial mission so I can teach this to more players, I can get into the rules better myself, get it more ingrained, and, you know, get it back to the table and enjoy it a lot more. But yeah, whew, it needed a little bit of a rules tweak. But yeah, it just hasn't got played. It's fallen off, and I do really like the game, but the top 100 must reflect what I'm getting played and what I desire to get played. That's the thing. And then finally, 43, now off my top 100, is Detective. Just Detective. The Portal game, and like I say, it feels a bit harsh, you know. Imperial Settlers, Predaporter, Detective. There's a lot of Portal games that are falling off my top 100. Nothing against Portal, okay? It's just some of these games are, you know, falling a bit for me. Mainly because of, you know, bad rulebooks, which is something they do need to sort out. But mainly just because of some replacements now. I mean, this is a straight up replacement. Well, no. Imperial Settlers was straight up replaced. That doesn't count. I replaced a Portal game with a Portal game. This one is not so much a replacement. It's more, I've run out of content. And I just don't desire to. I'm dropping that from a... drop that... I know I'm dropping it from a 10 to a 9. I do think that this is a solid 9 out of 10 rated game. The problem is that I enjoyed it a lot more with the first expansion or so. I thought the LA one, the 80s one was really good. I liked Season 0. I thought that was a good set. These little spin-off ones that they've done though, the individual packs, they've been a little bit hit and miss. And the thing is that I've played all the content that there is, I think, to date, bar maybe 1 or 2 of those packs. And I just haven't had the massive desire to get those out. As much as I enjoy the game, it's tough. Half the time I don't get a very good score on it, but it's a good bit of fun for solo play if I've got the time to spare. But I preferred the big box expansions. I just haven't been a fan of these little ones on the side. And I find myself sort of a bit more drawn to Chronicles of Crime for the simplicity of, you know, like the coolness of the app. But even then, I haven't played that in a while. I mean, it's hard to say. I think this one is just kind of exhausted its, like, shelf appeal. I mean, I'm trying to sell it at the moment. I haven't quite yet, but I've really enjoyed my plays of it to this point. It's a bit like Pandemic Legacy. You know, I really enjoyed Pandemic Legacy. I have no reason to keep it. It's done. It's dusted. You know, this one, it's done. Not quite dusted, but I feel like I've played it to death and I've exhausted what I can get out of the system. So, really cool game. Really do recommend it. But I think I've just played it to death, and as such, it's not something I can really leave in my top 100 if it's not something I'm likely to bring out again. Right. Oh my god, my throat really hurts. Oh my god. Right, I am not going to do any more speaking until 7 o'clock tonight when I got to be on online gaming. Well, hopefully won't do much talking over the next few days while at work even. I just need to give my throat a bit of a rest. So thank you for joining me on that big dissection of the top 100. Yeah, a lot of games fell off, a lot of designers. I love my top 100. Hopefully you enjoyed those videos. If you have not checked out my top 100 yet, please do. Seriously, a lot of work goes into those, and they are good fun. I do promise you, they're good fun to listen to. Gives you a good insight into my taste in games, whether you agree with them or not. But like I say, there's some ones in there that I reckon you should check out. So by all means, check out the whole top 100 if you can. You know, listen to them in podcast form on your car journey, and you'll do well. So yeah, that's it for me on this podcast. I'm going to wrap up, and I'll see you again soon. So enjoy what you're doing. Thanksgiving's happened already for the US, so I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving for then. But as we lead on to Christmas, there'll be another episode in 2 weeks, and then I shall probably take a break for Christmas, because I think 2 weeks is going to be... What's 2 weeks going to be? 2 weeks is going to be 11th, and then 25th. Yeah, I'm not doing a podcast on Christmas Day, people, all right? So you'll probably find that I'll do one more episode before Christmas. Maybe I'll talk about stocking stuffers or something. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then I will take a break for the Christmas break. So there'll be a break in the podcast scheduling there, obviously, because who's going to listen to me on Christmas Day? And then I'll resume normal service in January when it's 2 weeks after that. So, yeah, thanks for joining me on this episode. I'll see you again soon. And remember, as always, regardless of how your top 100 games would go, it's still only a game. Bye for now. Take care.